Okay, I believe that we are now live. We are now live on our social media handles. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Umunnem Afambo Maazi Ezeoke. We are delighted to present today's State of the Igbo Nation series, featuring an exclusive one-on-one conversation with Dr. Stanislaus Akujobi UKEJE. Dr. UKEJE holds a PhD in economics and is a renowned expert in development economics and policy analysis, with an extensive background that includes roles in the Ministry of National Planning, specialized banking, central banking, academic, and policy advisory. Dr. UKEJE brings a wealth of knowledge to this discussion. He is currently the managing consultant at Stans Consult Nigeria and an active member of the Technical Committee on the Southeast Nigeria Economic Commission, that is SENEC. In this conversation that we have had in about 4 series now, which is to keep looking at how do we explore the opportunities and the challenges, to overcome the challenges within the southeast of Nigeria. I am your host, Maazi Ezeoke, and of the Njenje Media Group. Now, Dr. UKEJE, you're welcome once more to this one-on-one conversation. Dr. UKEJE, are you there? Dr. UKEJE, are you there?
I am. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me quickly start with my first question to you. You had the intro that I made, right?
Say that again.
You had the introduction part of this conversation, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did.
So let me start with the first question. Now, could you please, if you don't mind, tell us about your professional journey and what motivated you to focus on development economics and policy analysis?
I can say that in the environment in which we live, it is very easy to observe development challenges. There is something that is in economics that is called production possibility frontier. When you look around and you see that there are things that can be done but are not being done, one becomes interested in what the constraints are, how they can be removed, and how incentives can be put in place for those things that are proper and required to be done. I think that's the key motivation.
Okay, for things to be done properly. That's why you basically moved into this area. Now, what do you see as the most significant economic issue currently, as we speak, affecting Igbo in Nigeria?
Underproduction, because there are parts of the world where you find unemployment because there is full employment. Excess labor or material cannot be employed. But in our setting, there are unused factors. Many unused factors, land that is not cultivated, people who are willing to work, who are not employed, work that needs to be done, which are not done. It's very easy to identify that we need to engage in order to develop.
When you talk about works that ought to be done, but obviously not being done, where do you situate this? Where do you leave this? Are you, insinuating is this to get this done? Is it within the private sector, or is it something that the government of the day or the government of the region has to play key roles in ensuring that they are up to speed?
I think it's basically the public sector. If we don't, even if I don't use the word government, because
Go ahead, we can hear you.
yes, I'm saying that it's the public sector because markets are actually a creation of the public sector. If you look back at our economy before colonial administration, every town or most towns had a marketplace. Those market places hold like bazaars every once a week, which is a 4-day week. In other words, in 3 days, people are supposed to produce. In 1 day, they exchange. Now, that is not the case now. The public sector that has control of money, which is the major means of exchange, don't seem to be doing what they ought to do in order to create incentives for production and exchange in a meaningful manner that will help people manage their lives and livelihoods.
No, but it's, you know, the what you've just said now, is that peculiar to the Southeast, or is this something that is entirely for the, you know, for the whole nation and on a larger scale, the African continent?
I think it's like a pandemic. It has now affected the Southeast. It wasn't so before. Like I said, from our background, you don't go to the markets for entertainment. You go with something. There must be something that you are bringing to the marketplace. Marketplaces were arranged according to wards and villages, and those who are not from the town had their own area. So you came with something. But I think the larger Nigerian situation has created a permissive environment, which people have copied and copied wrongly.
Okay.
It wasn't the case before that people were idle or you had farms that land that was not cultivation under cultivation when it needed to be cultivated, or people living their safe places to go on to unsafe places. It wasn't the case, but Nigeria is united by a common currency, and therefore people in their attempts to earn a living in money terms sometimes are misled by the things that they see, which may be policy or things actually that should be controlled by government, but are not being done.
Okay. Now let me as in Abonye biko na watching. Let me come down. I not na Igbo. You know, Guinea bụ your perspective on regional development, considering that Nigeria, I mean, within the current structure anyway today. Hello, sir.
Yes, are you saying that Nigeria?
No. Considering Nigeria, obviously Nigeria with 3 states and 36 states and 6 geopolitical regions. Now, considering that Nigeria quasi a centralized system of doing things, what is your perspective on regional development?
Yes, like I said, the developments in the larger Nigerian environment had affected us adversely in the Southeast, because when the Eastern region was an independent component of Nigeria, we didn't have this kind of problem. If you said that somebody was living in Kano, he was either an employee of the Nigerian Railways Corporation, Post and Telegraph, or some agency, or working for a corporation. But now you find out, people who say, "Oh, I'm in Lagos," and they're doing nothing there. They won't come home to take care of the resources that are available to them. And if we had some level of autonomy in policy making and coordination, I think it's going to be different. Yes.
Okay. Keyword here, level of autonomy. Now, some level of autonomy, na equity, key difference here. Then that will bring me to the question now. You are someone who worked within the Ministry of National Planning. And I'll now ask, can you tell us or elaborate on the impact of those works you did at the Ministry of National Planning and how it has probably shaped your perspective on regional development?
Yes, I can say that, we're talking about the public sector now because in any economy, there are three key players, households, firms, and the public sector. And like I said, the public sector creates the environment of effort. From about 1945, the colonial government set up the first, what they call the first colonial development plan. That lasted for about 5 years. Then there was a second colonial development plan, which ended before independence. And at independence, the country itself started national planning. The first national plan or national development plan was 1962 to 1968. It was interrupted by the war. But part of what the first national development plan delivered was policy coordination. Now you hear that the federal government is borrowing from the central bank, state government is borrowing from commercial bank, state governments are borrowing from the World Bank or ADB. Under the first national development plan, it didn't happen because the central bank offered credit to the whole country. In other words, if a region needed a loan, the central bank will issue what is called a development loan stock for the budget period, from which the federal and the 4 regional governments will partake. Therefore, the growth of money was under control. Then the Ministry of Finance or the Federal Ministry of Finance arranged the exchange rate system. Although at that time, there was a global dollar-based gold standard in exchange control. But then the Federal Ministry of Finance assured every investor of the quantum of currency that was available. That was why you could find a Namelware in Onitsha, textile, cotton mill. Those industries came in order to produce what we could not produce, what was called import substitution industrialization. And there were no uncertainties about what was available, raw material, markets, and inputs, and even loans from the banking system. Like I said, the war disrupted a lot of things. But after the war, many top civil servants rearranged things, and there was the second National Development Plan, 1970 to 1974 or 75. That was when the Enugu-Onitsha Expressway was planned. the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway was planned. Those plans were to help get things done. You see, but unfortunately, when Gowon was overthrown, the regime that succeeded it, in a bid to impress, excessively increased the value of the National Development Plan. We were talking about billions, millions, they moved to billions. And that big injection suffered a setback when the oil industry went into decline from a boom arising from the Arab-Israeli War of 1973 to a decline around the 1978. And Obasanjo, who was head of state at the time, faced it squarely by saying that Nigeria should cut back its expenditure. He used the term, cut your coat according to your cloth, not according to your size. A lot of people who had jumped into import of made-up dresses, Italian shoes, could no longer access foreign exchange. And there was a topsy-turvy. Of course, we went into the civilian regime. There was some bounce back under the MPP accord. But political disagreements from around the country also led to the intervention of the army again. And the fourth National Development Plan that was to run from 1983 to 87 was altered by Babangida when he introduced what was called rolling plan, 3-year budgets ahead. But the discipline to get those things done were no longer there because the army had dismissed a lot of civil servants in 1975 after Gowon was overthrown, and people were now wary of doing things well. This is how we came to a situation now where you have governance as the business of the governor. The civil service have been silenced, and there are actually no plans on the ground. Anybody elected a governor can say, oh, I want to issue lenses to all students. Whether there was a plan for them, whether they have been tested for eye defects, he just goes about buying the eye lenses and giving it to the students as his democracy dividend, which is not what we should be doing.
So, in essence, here, if I may interject, you're positing here that the concept of national development plan, as was envisaged before, and that has actually is no longer tenable today, or it's no longer being carried out by those in government today. I mean, at the national level, right?
It is very true, because under the second National Development Plan, there was this transportation sector that introduced motor assembly plants. It was very obvious that most transporters from what is now Southeast patronized Mercedes. Tabansi Motors from the 50s patronized Mercedes. Oko Youth, Mercedes. Many of them, Kennedy Chukwu. So the government at that time set up a Mercedes assembly plant in Enugu called Anambra Motor Manufacturing Company. Similarly, in the Southwest, people were used to Leyland vehicles made in England. So a Leyland plant was set up in Ibadan. Then in the north, in Kano, there was another assembly plant called Bedford, because it used to be said that in Kano, people will encourage you to buy Bedford. They said, if you buy Bedford, you bury Wahala. So these are well thought out business ventures invested in by government in partnership with international companies. There was a tractor assembly plant in Bauchi. The East Central State government set up what later became AVOP, the Anambra Vegetable Oil Company. These were well-planned investments. They had assurances of market. They had assurances of input. And then about the 70s, when the oil boom came, the government spent a lot of money sending people to meet the gap in manpower, because our people had gone to universities and they were doing well. But below them, there was a lot of gap. So you could find people like Dr. Igbo, Professor Cordeline. They were stars. But below them, you didn't find enough technicians to carry forward their message. In other words, if you had a professor in a university, the people who will actually take down the professor's ideas and findings are the younger lecturers. So if you don't have them, it means that there's a gap. Therefore, the government sent a lot of people out. But by the time these people came back, planning had been abandoned. Some of them left, they remained overseas. Some of them came back and nobody took care of them. So certainly our problem has been magnified by lack of planning.
Okay.
Central planning, coordinated planning.
Now, I like the word you used, by the time they came back, planning has been abandoned. Does it then mean, as na na I mean, okay, let me put it this way. Does it then mean that if the national level cannot plan, are there inhibitions stopping the regional level to also plan? Take, for instance, we have the Southeast, Makanas Nebonye Bikona watching. Gini mezi na ọ bụrụ na ndị nọ n'isi enwere ike a plan for tomorrow. Anyị nwa na onwe anyị, ọ bụrụ na anyị ma ife, onwe ife ji anyị to also plan for our tomorrow.
Oh, there can be no doubt about it. Because there's an Egyptian professor who defined a nation as a group of people who, when they are together, are happy. When they are separated, they are unhappy. And when they are ruled by people who are not of their kind, they are aggrieved. You will discover that in Nigeria, people are aggrieved when they are ruled by people who are not of their kind. That's what you find. If you elect somebody to be president of Nigeria, he just falls into his comfort zone and ignores the whole country. Therefore, just like in Igbo meetings, if you had a meeting of maybe Onitsha provincial, maybe say leaders of thought, the first Onitsha provincial leaders of thought, which consists of the whole of Ebonyi, Enugu, Anambra. Now, if a proposal was made at such a meeting, which did not favor maybe people from Ihiala area, they will take excuse to go and consult. After consultation, they will come back and they will say that people of Ihiala do not accept this proposal because 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons. If you don't accept, if you don't modify it to incorporate them, they will no longer participate in the meeting. In fact, there's an economic term called Pareto optimality. Any change you introduce must increase the welfare of more people than it will reduce the welfare of others. So, where does that take us to? The Southeast are a group of people they belong to a nation. Even if they are not aware that they are one nation, the way other people treat them should make them aware that they are one nation. In other words, if people treat Stan UKEJE in the same way they treat Tochukwu, the same way they treat Nnamdi, the same way they treat Okechukwu, we should look at ourselves and say, why is that person treating us the same manner? Oh, maybe we are related. We came here individually, but because we are being treated alike, then we should look at ourselves properly and find out why there is a problem. So I do think that this is the domain from which the Southeast should look at things and get themselves organized to solve their problem.
In a to solve. That means future. In grammar or tenses, I got signal future tense. Understand, you gave a perfect analogy because na agbamba tunogwe mano ya bụ ka apịala akụ gụnwa bụ dọkịta etu anyị esi wee eme nwa etu 11 emekwa onye ọzọ 11 na enwepụta na ebe nwata na ebe akwa alụ aka na ọ bụ na nne ya nọrọ na nne ya na o nwee ebe. So knowing all these things, question m bụzi gịnị ji nkịta ọnwụ onwe ihe ọ bụgodị nọ na anyị ekwu nke bụ na this is not the language you understand. N'asụsụ anyị nwa ya ama kedu ife bụ that thing dị na melu na anyị adịrọ capable ebe enwe the National Development Plan, according to what you've just highlighted, appears to be dead. Gịnị bụzi na anyị nwere ike iji aka nachiga azụ wee sị na ebe anyị ga-eji wee were okwu wee chọba ya bụ ife daa na mmiri? Why are we incapable of doing that? Maybe in answering this question, maybe you can also tell us, and when something no at the national that is probably also inhibiting us from doing that. If so, KKS will manipulate.
The first thing, like I gave in that definition by an Egyptian philosopher, but that Nandi Bugamana how a nation. Nigeria by a state. A state is different from a nation. Onye fuka onye na-achị kita ma onye chiburu before onye na-achị kita na-akpa oke na-akpanyere ndị be ha ya dị na anyị o nwere ike wute anyị mana ya gba n'anyịgharị maka na ekechie na nna na nna ekebe na nne na nne ọ dị mma ka ndị Igbo malụ na ha bụ nwanne bụrụ ụmụnna maka na ihe emere ofu onye ka a na-eme onye nke ọzọ. Ebe a si nwee nsogbu bụ na ndị be anyị na-eje asata ọchịchị n'aka ndị ọzọ. Ọ na-enye nsogbu maka na onye iziri ozi onye isi ya jere gị ahịa iruo n'otu gotere m abada ọ pụta n'ụzọ onye ọ fụrụ ọsị ya na onye dị otu a si ya gotere ya abada biko iruo n'otu onye apụta n'ụzọ onyekwa ozi onye ọzọ mgbe a ga-anatazi egotere gị aba n'anya onye ahụ iziri ozi ruo ya jee ebe eziri ya onwe ihe a na-ekwu dị ya ọ nachite azụ. Ine anya kịta Nigeria megharịrị national anthem anwa kwuru that na flag Nigeria bụ without stain. O nwere ihe na-estain flag ka ọbara. Ndị Amerịka anụgo ọgụ ha gburu ndị ha bịa ha mechie mara ihe na-echekwazi ndị India. Ndị UK anụgo ọgụ aghara mgbe ha na-achọ ụbara. Ị na-anya na their flag ị ga-afụ red. O gosiri that na ha ma na ọbara dike gbafuru. Kedu ka Nigeria ga-esi na-agwa ekwu na our flag is without stain? Ndị Igbo nọrọ ebe ahụ kweta n'eziokwu ọ bụrụ eziokwu. Enyere every zone 6 ministers. Ndị Igbo nweta only 5. O nwere onye ga-asị onwe ihe na ndị Owere na-ekwu na-asị na erima m ejila afọrọ ụka ihe ahụ ị na-enye m enyezine m ya ka ya na jegwa ndị zitere ya mana o nwere onye ga-eme nwunye maka na ọ bụrụ ndị Amerịka sị na many people bụ foreign assets. Ị na-anụ ebe a na-edibeti dịka Trump na ndị otu ya ụfọdụ asị that na nọ ndị Russia tinyere Trump na ọ na-arụrụ ha ọrụ. So o nwere ndị ọzọ ndị be anyị na-arụrụ ọrụ isile ka ikwu okwu asị gị chelo na ịghọtara ihe na-eme ọ bụ na ijego Abuja ịghọtara ka okwu si aga gị chelo ya na-eche onwe ihe a na-emebi. So mana o nwere ndị na-anọrọ n'ọchịchị tinyere ọnụ n'okwu ka e nwee regional development. Mụ na onwe mma mgbe anyị na-eme Enugu forum under the auspices of African Institute for Applied Economics. Mgbe Soludo bụ executive director of that institution. Anyị na-enwe ọgbakọ. Ndị mmadụ ndị jere akwụkwọ ndị nọ n'Enugu na-agbakọta na-eme nzukọ anwa wee sị ka anyị chọọ anị ewee chọpụta anị. One of the things I chọpụta bụ na states nọ na Southeast dị too small to make impact on their own. Maka na akwasị na mmadụ ka eji aka. A na-asị na onye ndị Igbo na-akpọ ogbenye bụ onye na-enwere mmadụ, ọ bụrụ onye na-enwere ego. Maka na onye nwere mmadụ ka onye nwere ego. Ọ bụ na otu Ọnịcha kịta, Ọnịcha bụ commercial town, mana nwere onye akpara oke ya bịa n'Ọnịcha. Onye Igbo ọbụla pụtara n'Ọnịcha ọ naba, mana ọ dịzi too congested maka na ihe ọ na-aserve karịrị ya. Mana ọ bụrụ na akpa asị oke onye na-atụta moto pass n'Ọnịcha gị nwee depo na Abakaliki, nwee na Ọka, nwee na Aba, nwee na Ụmụahịa, rejista ya ka ime ka sure na mgbe ahịa gị natara ibunyelu ndị a. Onye chọzi igoro parts na Abakaliki na Ebonyi o jee na Abakaliki. Mana chifu ụtụtụ mmadụ esi Afikpo, si Ogoja, si Manfe na-agbaga Ọnịcha, o nwere onye na-ajụ ngwaahịa a na-achọga ọ dịkwa. So gọọmenti nwere a role in coaching. That is why mgbe a nọ na 60s or 50s, the Eastern Nigeria Development Corporation lụrụ ụdị ọrụ anyị na-ekwu kịta. A na-akpa a na-eme. University of Nigeria ebido the taught in 1954 wee na-edobe ihe naanị nwayọ. Ndị be anyị niile jere akwụkwọ na Amerịka, onye isi ha bụ Nnamdi Azikiwe, ma onye nọbụ n'ọkwa before him bụ Prọfesọ Eyoita. Ha ncha jere akwụkwọ na top universities in the United States. Ha na-aga ofu na-ayọ ndị anwa kụziere ha ka unu ha bịanyela ndị be anyị aka. Ọ bụrụ na ịma maka University of Nigeria, ị ga-ama that na University of Nigeria bụ the first university bidoro ya na-akpọ General Studies. That General Studies bụ maka ndị na-ejero grammar school. While the University of Ibadan na-etake ewerucha ndị niile jero Government College Ụmụahịa, mana ọtụtụ ndị be anyị jero teachers grade 2, grade 3 before ha gbagota. So mgbe Zik ha fụ that na inweta ndị jere higher school ga-eje university a dị difficult. Ndị ahụ nwere problem na ha gụrụ general sciences and general literature. Ewes na ga-etinyere ha general science to brush them up to be able to meet up. And when they did that, it was wonderful. By the time the first graduates came out in 1964, it was a very good product. Even the federal government was employing them. Foreign companies were employing them. So, izu akọna mmadụ, izu ama nkọ ndị Igbo. So, enwere ihe akpọrọ mgbanwa Southeast Nigeria Economic Development Commission, SENEC. Or a proposal, seen that Enugu Forum wee pụta. Ofu onye mma, Engineer Chris Okoye, bụ onye bụ chairman of the steering committee. Professor Njenje was a member. Late Professor Ukuwayoku was a member, and I was a member of the technical committee. From that time, mana Jessica and the governors or state governments tinye aka or gaba ọ na-adị ka ọ dị difficult maka na ndị mmadụ ahụ mara na agala atụrụ ka eji agba mgba. O nwere onye chịkọtara ọkpa ya nwutuo mmadụ naanị ichi gba mgba etusa ọkpa gị
ya gbasa
ị ga-agbasa ọkpa gị. So ọ bụrụ na ị gbasara ọkpa sọgụnwa ịma njidenwu mmadụ, mana anyị na-agba mgba nọrọ n'ọgbọ, o nwere ndị ga-asị gị chekwa ya, gị nye ya aka ga-ekpe gị nye ya nke a na-akụrụ gị aka. So ọ bụrụ na the Eastern Southeast region jikọta onwe ha ọnụ otu esi propose na that Senate, anyị aka agaghị very far.
Ikwute ikwute okwu Seneca ka m rapụ ajụjụ ndị ọzọ nchọbụ ịjụ ka m mbịakene ka anyị kpaa ya bụ nkata maka na a sị na ebe nwata na-alụ aka na ọ bụ na nne ya nọrọ nne ya nọrọ dịka onye so na the technical committee na the Southeast Nigeria Economic Commission, that's SENEC, bụrụkwanụ dịka onye mma mgbe e nyere ikike si gaba n'iru nke ndị oyibo na-akpa approval mgbe ya bụ gọvanọ chibulu Anambra steeti nke bụ Peter Obi mgbe ọ bụbu onye isi ndị Southeast governors mgbe ha nwa bụ ndị nyela ikike approval si oke ngwa biko si gabazie n'ilu. Now ihe mma ajụzi na ya bụ since ekwusi ife a bụ si oke si jezie what they call towards the speedy establishment of the commission and funds, that is ịbụ ịghọta ego a ga-eji wee mee ka ya bụ ihe bido. Emesịsịa na o nwere ife nwee isi a lot of people ofu emesịkwa nke mmakwa na ịma mgbe nna ya Nwodo bụ onye isi ndị ọhaneze wee mesịa wee nwekwa ife a na-akpọ Ala Igbo Stabilization Fund nke onye ịmakwa bụkwa prọfesọ Ogbu bụ onye isi fa. Nke a bụ agba mbụ ya bụ n'ogwe nke izizi ọ dịka na o jiriro ya bụ anụ, agba nke abụọ ọ dịka o jidere ya bụ anụ. Considering na ife ịma na Senate, considering na ife ịmakwa na Ala Igbo Development Ala Igbo Stabilization Fund, kedu ihe ọ dị gị ka bụ na agba n'ogwe ọtọ agbakwa abụọ na ya bụ ogwe ọ dịzie ka ya bụ ogwe ka apịala gịnị mee gịnị ji nkịta ọnwụ?
Ịmana agwa gị that na onye na-ejiri onwe ya aka adịghị emete ihe dị mma. Ikwugo maka Peter Obi. Obi ghọtara ihe ekwe na-akụ. Ọ bụrụ taa ka o bido gosiwe na ya ma ihe mere o ji pụta n'ọgbọ ihe dị iche na Nigeria na 2023. Onye ọzọ tinyere ọnụ n'okwu mgbe anwa bụ gọvanọ ndị Abịa nke pụrụ apụ na-abụrụ ikpeazụ T.A. Ọjị. Ọ ghọtara ihe a na-akọ mana ndị nke ọzọ aghọtachara ihe a na-ekwu maka na onye nọ n'izu ga-aghọta ihe a na-ekwu. Onye nọ n'izu ga-aghọta ihe a na-ekwu. Eji m Ọnịcha maatụ. O nwere mgbe ọ dịka trailer bụ bulldozer gbapụ n'ụzọ n'Ọnịcha wee gbaba ebe ndị ọkada nọ sụọ m ndị mmadụ ịkpapụ. Mana ọ ga-edogo anya na ndị anwa o metụta mbọsị anwa abụrụ ndị Anambra, maka na ndị na-agba ọkada ebe ahụ ike bụrụ ndị Ebonyi ma ndị ugwu. Ọ dị mkpa na onye nụrụ akwa nwa bịawa ọsịsọ. Ọ bụ na ihe dị mma na-eme n'Aba, na-eme n'Owerri, na-eme n'Ọnịcha, a sị na dat na ọ bụrụ steeti gị jụọ ese maka na ndị bụ unu n'ebe anwa. Senec ihe propose ka o mee bụ policy coordination. Policy coordination. Ọ bụ kịta na Anambra State University ma Abia State University ma Imo State University na-enye free education nya ịpas ya ịma na akwụ ụgwọ akwụkwọ. O nwere onye na-ama nje dị abụ onye Igbo, maka na ọ bụrụ na afa gị bụ Okeke, Okafọ, Okonkwo, Nwankwọ, Adakụ, ije dị a ị ga-abanye, maka na ajụọ gị kelee obodo isi ị ga-afụ ọgọ gị, nwanne gị, ọyị gị bụ onye Imo, bụ onye Anambra, bụ onye Abịa ga-asị gị zaa afọ obodo ha. Therefore, only about free rider. Any government to be efficient within the 5 states in the southeast will suffer a free rider problem because onwere ike ịkpa oke na ndị Igbo ọkamma na-ejikọrọ aka ọnụ wee na-eme ihe dị mma ọ bụrụ na a na-eme ka emerie emee na Owerri ma o mee na Ọkigwe no ihe anwa anyị kwuru ka anyị na-eme ka anyị ncha merie kịta a sị na kolera dị ndị gọvanọs nwere ike si ndị kọmishọnas ya unu jee nzukọ ka adị nkwadebe adị ama ama onye ọbụla kwụọ aka ya onye ọbụla mee nke ọzọ onwe vaccination a na-agba atụkọta ego ndị ọbụla gbawa na their own steeti ka kolera anwa ghara imetụta ndị be anyị ene anya na onwe ndị na-eyi anyị egwu na ama nkwesị ka anyị bịagoro nri asị onye ọbụla ọ bụrụ na anyị ga-adọrọ fertile gote akpa jee na Aguleri jee kọta aja ụlọ nwunye na akpa kọwa ji ebe ọbụla ị nọ kọọ na Bende kọọ na Arochukwu kọọ na Ozuitem kọọ na Afikpo onye ọbụla kọta nke ọ ga-eri nke fọzi ile. That is policy coordination. Our secondary schools bụ ihe anyị ji bụ wee bụrụ mmadụ mgbe abịa sị gị na onye a jelu CKC na o je DMGS na o jelu CIC kedu ka o si wee gaa mgbanwe a na-eme school approve ya ka iji wee fụ enwechara primary and secondary schools a na-asị no approved. Once gọọmenti nyere gị approval enye gị matching grant per student a ga-asị gị do not take more than 30 persons in a class or 20 persons in a class mana every secondary school ga-enwe physics laboratory, chemistry laboratory, agric laboratory, language laboratory. And with that kind of policy coordination, if that all our secondary schools will be okay, but government doesn't need to manage them to avoid asirinasi and only about governor and us na one nigga about principal na Queen's College. Mba, communities, private agencies, which is what Obi did when he was governor of Anambra and has exploded potentials in Anambra State. Give the people freedom to do things and government should regulate. But regulatory capture, government will employer, inspector, monitor, evaluation, man work. So Senec was to be set up as a policy coordination unit. All the states will be represented to think about what we need to do together. What should we be doing in our, some people na Atwegu, na Oburukwa region, Oburu no UKEJE ga-abụ premier. No, the states will be there. But all of you will be doing things in like manner, just like the European Union. Why you find regional tendencies around the world is that the United States of America had been found to be very successful for one reason, that it is the largest open economy in the world. Large open economy in the world. China is large, but it's not an open economy. The US is a trading economy. But because it is large, somebody will get in the world champion. Niabo also like California, bar first, Bana New York, bar first, J Florida, bar first. Niabo is a world champion. Instead of Ezeoke, they are again Niabo. Igbo Stadium, na US, if not the world class. So ndị Igbo nwere ike ime ọ bụ na ejikọta ọnụ. And iji kọwa ihe a na-ekwu mgbe anyị nwere East Central States, we were much better. Mgbe anyị na Rangers na-eji gba bọọlụ na ebe ọbụla na Nigeria ma ọ na Africa, onye ọbụla na-eke nkwụcha na-ege ihe ga-eme maka na o nwere wide area ọ na-draw players from. Mana kịta ị na-anụzi Rangers ụfọdụ anyị eghe ughere sị biko ka ya jee ebe a na-ekiri TV ka ya wọchigolo Arsenal. So each of the states, the too small to generate momentum. I think that's an expression that we need to understand.
Okay, now each of the states, the too small, but not in population, but probably in terms of capacity to generate momentum. But that's which is what you are proposing. Manon we eventually can do it's in Nabia no chichi n'ihe mmelụ anyị jiri emetasị ya bụ na ọ bụrụ ndị anyị kwụọla chibala anyị ndị anyị nyere ọrụ na vara alụla anyị ya bụ ọrụ. I want to take you back. If you come to the Southeast now, 2024, I believe na anyị nwekene ụfọdụ ndị ghọtala ebe a na-eje. If I take, for example, na Anambra, at least nke anyị chama, ọ bụ na anyị were Anambra were Abịa, anyị ewelukwa na ndị na-achị ya bụ obodo na-abụ ghọta ebe a na-eje. Ọ bụ na va ghọta ebe a na-eje, it brings me back to that ihe gbasalụ Senate, ihe gbasalụ ala Igbo stabilization, ihe gbasalụ ihe niile emego ka anyị wee bịakọta ọnụ, maka na a sị na abịakọta ọnụ agbakọkwanye nwa n'unu na ọrụ awa n'afa. So kedu ka anyị esi agbakọ ya bụ agbakọ wee kwanye nwa n'unu ka ọ ghara ịwa n'afa? Gịnị mee? Understanding na ọ bụrụ ha ncha niile, mana o nwee ndị some of us nwee ike ikweta na ha ma ife a na-eme ka ihe mmekwa anụ na anyị ka ji wee dịkwa isi ka ihe akọrọ anyị. Doc, are you there? Hello? I think your audio has gone. Okay, you are back. Okay, you're back now. Doc, are you there? Dr. UKEJE, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, ajụjụ m jụrụ. Hello?
Hello?
Ajụjụ m jụrụ.
Enwere ihe na-ekwu before kwuo ọzọ.
Okay. Asị m na mgbe ị na-ekwu okwu, ikwu na ọ bụrụkwanụ ndị anyị na-ahọpụta ka ha jee rụọla anyị ọrụ, na ọtụtụ n'ime ha aghọtasịrị ebe a na-eje. Ọ nwekwa nke isi wee sị wee na-asị na ọ bụrụ na ihe bụ ji nkịta ọnwụ gbasalụ, ọ bụrụ na anyị kwuo Senate, anyị kwuo maka ala Igbo stabilization fund, n'ihe niile a na-ekwukwanụ bụ kedu ka a ga-esi nwee the policy ga-propel Southeast ka ha nọrọ ebe ha kwesịrị ịnọ. Iwe sị nọ ụfọdụ n'ime anyị na-arọpụta asị adịrị aghọtasị. Ajụjụ m wee bụrụ na 2024 tata anyị nwee ndị some governors gụnwa ekwetakwa mụnwa ekwetakwa na ha ghọta ebe a na-eje. M wee sị ka m were Igbo wee maala ya atụ, m wee gosi maka Anambra, gwakwana gị maka Abịa, na mmadụ na-aba na ọ bụrụ na anyị nyekwa nri ọfụma, ewela ndị okenye ji enyi ife dị n'akpa, na ụfọdụ n'ime anyị ekwetakwa na fama kwa ebe a na-eje. M wee jụzie ahụ, gịnị bụzi ya bụ ife ji nkịta ọnwụ? Ọ bụrụ na some of them ghọta ebe a na-eje, ka ihe meenụ, because mgbe ị na-ekwu okwu, mgbe m mention Peter Obi, mgbe ọ bụ onye isi ndị Governors Forum, iwe sị yes na ọ ghọta ebe a na-eje, mana ọkwa na ụfọdụ n'ime ndị nọkịta ghọta ebe a na-eje, ka ihe mezi anyị ji anachigazi azụ. Ya bụ ajụjụ m chọrọ ịza.
Ndị Igbo si na akọ ofu onye maalụ abụrụ akọ. Eji m ndị prọfesọ na yunivasiti wee mara gị atụ. Ọ bụ na ije kpọta, ọ bụ na Einstein, ọ bụ na a ga-etete nwunye n'ọnwụ ọpụta bịa kịta na maybe any polytechnic na Nigeria, enwere ihe ọ ga-emetanwu, maka so nyanwa ama nkọwatanwu everything. Ndị ga-aghọta ihe ọ na-akọ wee na-akọrị ya na-agbada the few. Our problem majorly the embedded in language. In around the world, many countries in Europe, their population is lower than Igbo. Moldova, Greece, name them. Mana hancha bụ asụsụ ha ka ha ji eje akwụkwọ alụ ọrụ. Unu nwa nọ n'obodo oyibo, many people na-agba football ejero university, mana oyibo ka ha ji akụzi ha nkụzi. Ha na ndị anwa na-akụziri ha na-asụ ofe asụsụ. Ọ bụrụ ịkọwa na Igbo, onye anwa aghọta ya n'oyibo, ịsụọrọ ya n'oyibo, o were Igbo wee ghọta ya. Ọ bụrụ na ndị Igbo jikọọ ọnụ kweta na Igbo orthography, nke a my personal observation, na China na ebe ha nọ kịta bụ language. O nwere mgbe eche that na if you are speaking English, if a country is speaking English, it will develop. It may have access to US markets. But teaching in English is very expensive because we don't have enough English teachers. This is just something that if we had Senec, we could have done it by making our language the language of education and instruction and administration. My kind of language is like a force multiplier. Ọ na mụ na gị nọ kịta anyị dị ka maybe ndị Igbo nọ ofu ebe anyị dị ka were na anyị dị 11, onwe okenye nọ n'ime anyị a na-ekwu okwu gbasara Nigeria ebe ndị ọzọ nọ. Ị nwere ike binie chọọ ikwu okwu, somebody onye Igbo ọzọ asị gị gbuo ijiji n'ọnụ, mana o nwere ijiji n'ebe anwa. Ihe ị ga-aghọta bụ na ọ sị gị chelụ na okwu ka okwu pụtacha na oke ruru oge okwu, ama na ịma ihe ị ga-ekwu, mana ichelụ. Ndị mekanik, baba, hairdresser, filmmakers had the constraint by language, and the abroad the language you produce something, because Vietnam now supply Nigeria with drugs, malaria drugs. But they are using their language in instruction and production. When they want to export it, they will translate it into English for the market they are going to work on. I'm using language as one factor. Therefore, nenwere onye ma ihe na 2 states, mana agbata obi gị aghọtara ihe a na-akọ. Ịchọwa ka gị na aghọta onwe unu nwere ike baa na nsogbu maka na aghọtara ihe a na-ekwu. Ọ bụrụ na o nwere ụzọ si Oji River si Inyi banye Enugu abụọ pụta Oko si ebe anwa pụta Ekwulọbịa, o nwere ndị bi ebe anwa, ha bi n'Enugu, ụfọdụ bi na Ụga, mana akpa okay, na anyị ga-alụ ụzọ a, gị lụrụ lute ebe a ka mụ alụ lute ebe a, na anyị ga-etinye police station ebe a, unu ma tinyekwe na nke ọzọ ka ndị na-eji ghọta that na nwere ihe ga-eme ha ma ha ebe ha nọ. Mana ọ dị njọ na nwaanyị bụ Okeke. Ọtụtụ ndị nọ n'ọchịchị bụ ndị na-abụrụ ndị Igbo tinyere ha n'ọkwa. Eziokwu na anyị to vote, mana o nwere ndị dị sponsored by people outside, and therefore their loyalty is to those people. That's one problem, and that is why open and regional governance, that interference will no longer be there, because one of the things that will happen is that you will share tax powers. Obuna say na enwe modern shoe industry nowhere. Like if you want to ship that those shoes to Delta states, you will have some excise duty, because now US, only some states now ban the introduction of goods from other states to their own states, because now industry see the weak, which they want to protect, and is allowed by US law. Therefore, your tax will depend on the people within the region, and therefore you will be loyal to them. Onye email interview after na Njenje, Professor Ostobu, osna ịchọ ịma ihe onye na n'ọchịchị ga-eme, gị chọọ onye ọ na-atụ egwu. Ọ bụrụ na ọ na-atụ ndị ọ na-achị egwu, ọma mme ihe ha chọọ. Ọ bụrụ na onye ọ na-atụ egwu nọ na mba ọzọ, ịbịagodu na bịa ọsị ichelu ka ya kpọọ gị ya ka ọ gwa ihe a ga-agwa gị. So a regional atmosphere will internalize our capacity. Internalization. We need that kind of dynamic in order to get things done. and people need to recognize it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mana tupu ya na-aga n'iru, ọ bụrụ onwe ife ikwu nchọ ka m tinyekọ n'ọnụ. Ọ bụrụ na iwu megide na ị ga-azị, mana ị na-ekwu na ndị anyị na-arọpụta ara ejela anyị ozi. Wee jụzie ahụ, ọ bụrụ an indictment on all of us collectively, na ọ bụgodị na onye ọzọ mụta nwa na-aghọ ala, anyị nwa ya ejezi jetụba nwaanyị ime ka anyị mụta akwazie nwa na-aghọ ala, maka na ihe what ite na peers bụ na ọ bụgodị na onwe ndị ọzọ na-eme ya is an indictment on us that na anyị nwa amarụ maka ndị anyị na-arọpụta kafachi anyị ọfụma. Ọ na anyị nwa bụ ndị na-arọpụta fa ara echebe echiche ọfụma tupu anyị ewe họpụtaba ha. O wee bụrụ ya ka arapụkaniona ka anyị welu maka na ebe anyị bido very late ka anyị welu round up now. Ajụjụ ọzọ m nwee ịjụ ebe na mgbe ị na-ekwu okwu ikwu maka inye aka, mgbe ikwu maka etu Nnamdi Dr. Azikiwe si welu mgbe ọ gụsị na America, etu ha si wee kpaba with ndị fa ga akwụkwọ na befa. Question wee bụrụ, what role do you think the Igbo diaspora can play in the economic development of our Igbo, and how can their contribution be maximized, bearing in mind two key areas I work with now? For instance, I work with Senec, I work with Mago, how to have a kind of a clearing house where Ogabonye, where Ebosi Kajupute, Kanabatia. In the absence of that, what do you think the Igbo in diaspora can do in helping to develop the great Igbo nation?
Ịgwa eziokwu, ndị be anyị nọ na ofesi ọnụ na-elu ha n'okwu maka na ọtụtụ oge ndị na-achị ebe a, ndị na-achị n'ụlọ na-abịa ebe anwa ka ha na-akpa. Onwe mgbe a na-enwe World Igbo Congress, ndị World Igbo Congress suppose ịgwa ndị Igbo na-achị unu nyụkọ mamịrị ọnụ ka o wee gbaa ọfụfụ. One of the things ga-eme ma ọ bụ na ndị nọ n'ofesi tinye ọnụ n'okwu bụ na a ga-enwe ihe m ga-akpọ solidarity. One of the things make Nnamdi Azikiwe and Dr. Okpara and even Babiasika bụ solidarity. Ịmarụ na ihe a dị mma ịdị n'Owerri tinye ebe anwa, ịmarụ na nke a dị mma na Abagana tinye na Abagana. Onye ọbụla nọrọ na-afụ na ihe na-aga okirikiri. Ndị Igbo si na onye ji kọpụ jide kọpụ ma mmanya gawa okirikiri, ya agbanye nkwụ apanye onye a ọṅụcha agbanyere onye ọzọ. Solidarity. Secondly, ndị be anyị nọ n'ofesi ji ego, o nwere ihe a na-akpọ capital trade points nọ na Nigerian Investment and Securities Act. Onye did that act actually bụ Odife, Dennis Odife. I think onye Ọnịcha ka ọ bụ. Ọ bụrụ na ndị be anyị gbakọ ọnụ, enwere ike irejista capital trade points na Ọnịcha, Enugu, Aba, Abakaliki, Ụmụahịa. Maka na afụgo m na Sendef atụrụ elu ka e wee gbakọta ego e ga-eji nwee ana Igbo stabilization fund dị difficult because ndị mmadụ na-enyo ibe ha enyo. Mana enwe those capital trade points, ọ bụrụ na a chọrọ ịlụ rail line from Ọnịcha to Enugu, ọ bụrụ iwu alụrụ ya bido Ọnịcha ruo Enugu, enwere ike si Ọnịcha ruo Ogidi. Onye nwere ego jee na that capital trade point ogolo bond, ego a ga-eji lụ rail line. The moment that rail line move from maybe Onitsha, Luoka, or the congested road, and then with ego, and now interest to those people who are holding those bonds. Other people are now better, and now Rose and Luenugu. Isi Onitsha, Joe were. No industry because anya agafego ụwa kịta enidrozi one-man business onwe limit. Ọ bụ na enwe big, let me say medium enterprises, because ha enwe bụ micro enterprises, enwe medium enterprises, ị ga-afụ na ụmụaka chọrọ ọrụ ga-enweta ọrụ. Dịka onye je university je gụọ purchasing and supply, o nwere ọrụ, mana onye bụ importer, nyanwa bụ buyer, nyanwa bụ seller, nyanwa bụ storekeeper. Mana ọ dị bigger, ị na-eji ego ihe, you employ a buyer who will go and buy for you. Make sure you employ a lawyer who will sign agreement with your supplier, so that we can now have what is called let me remember the term, so that if you buy something and it is bad, you return it to the person. But here you find that the businessman is everything. In a or something, or store, check here, something that should have been on record. Lego 20 out of 25, not for 5. This is how people get job. Minimum wage in Ghana about kata. Igwari onye ahụ ọ ga-arụ ọrụ gị. Mbọsị ego dị na-adịrọzi, onye akwụsị na ọrụ agụgụ, onye ọbụla were nke naba. So I need the government needs to coach. My idea to register capital trade points in commercial centers around the southeast. Those people in diaspora who have money and people in Nigeria who have money can buy bonds to finance big ticket activities, well accounted for, so that we can move forward.
Doc here, in a capital trade point. Mango izizi aga region, nke bụ ya Igbo ka ya agba ọsọ. Maka na ọ bụ na ị na-ekwu okwu capital trade point, to register capital trade point, yet Senate that was approved by the Southeast governors under the leadership of Peter Obi then, and they have, is a using your word, or a policy coordinating entity, vehicle that's more or less like a clearinghouse, that even within it is contained these capital trade point, because at the end of the day, one of the key policies that I'm an advocate of, and also something I have passion for. If I take, for instance, Guinea, Jinkitonguna, Ndi Igbo Amangwolo, Enugu Port Harcourt Expressway, make a 4 lanes, both sides, because now one of the lanes on the left, if you're heading to Enugu, swimming pool, that is there now, on a lighter note. But, and take Enugu Port Harcourt, make it a 4 lane and expand it, make it an Enwe toll to collect the monies again therein invested in that. So, if no na nke ihe gbasara Senate, ihe gbasara Ala Igbo Stabilization Fund, aka enwero n'isi, kezi ka ozi edezie ka ihe dịka capital trade point, ka ọ enwe isi, ọrụ ofu ihe a bụ ya bụ ụtụ na-agba ya bụ ọka. Ọ bụ na ewetakwa ụdị ọka ọzọ, ya bụ ofu ụtụ, ọ dị ọrụ ka ofu ụtụ ahụ ya bakwana ya bụ ọka, gbakwu ya.
Ọ dị possible. Ị ga-echetakwa na ihe a na-akpọ Nigerian Stock Exchange now, na onye bidoro ya bụ late Sir Louis Ojukwu. Ọ bụrụ gọọmenti bidoro Nigerian Stock Exchange. A capital trade point bụ a small exchange. Ndị ebe anyị anwa ji ego nọ n'obodo oyibo nwere ike incorporate a capital trade point n'Ọnịcha. Ha nwee projects ha feel not viable, but an infrastructural project. What they need to do is to meet the Anambra State government and say, we want to build a monorail from Onitsha to Nnewi. All what we need for you to do is to cooperate with us as we survey and move from the line Onitsha to Nnewi. Examples, success is a very effective drug. Once you do it and you do it well, you will find the same thing being repeated everywhere. Ikulogu Port Harcourt Expressway under Jonathan, Onolememe, the Minister of Works under him, said that Enugu Port Harcourt Expressway should be a 6-lane highway. But here I'm about unrepresentative representatives. Iga kita na Enugu Port Harcourt Expressway from the NMPC point. And Aluchizie, which means that even if government wants to implement that policy, a lot of destruction would have to take place. But some regional interest group who they will want the Federal Ministry of Works and the Enugu State government not to permit construction on the edges or the furniture area of the road. But oh God, usa nilo if you are not there, so the diaspora can be inspired to become the saving grace, because Zik, many of them studied in the US. They were at home, but they were like diaspora because Heje Gomba, Fu Hedima, we will need to buy. So India no no Ibo, Banyana Fuzo, Wikisi, Nekesi, like we are talking about coordination. Open Enwelo, because now. Nana lose on Onitsha. I see blues of men survey. Kamalu Onitsha at a general level. What is its position relative to the sea level? So that Amalu the depth of waterways. So that Oman not be waterlogged. But things will not go well. But one good example can become an example that will spread. And I will like to confirm to you that the brains behind Senec, led by Engineer Okoye, were the people that made Akanibiam airport restructuring successful, because they formed themselves as a volunteer, meeting all the state governments, meeting the senators to put pressure on one, Obasanjo, to allow it to be an international airport. Secondly, for expansion, and just like using their own time to get it done, and it is now done. So the same type of pressure can bring an American airline to be landing at Kanibam International Airport, and other airlines other airports that are around. So Diaspora has something to do, because I know in a difficult situation where, like I said, a number of people in politics are not loyal to the Igbo people, according to the theory by Professor Obu.
Okay. I hope. In rounding up, thank you very much for that. In rounding up, I think before I allow, if any, I mean your digital hand, but if you use your digital hand, raise your hand and I can bring you in to ask questions. But before we leave this conversation this evening, I would want also to ask you, can you discuss the current state of infrastructure? Obviously, some of them you've highlighted in the Southeast region, and what improvements are essential to support economic development? I mean, obviously, you've mentioned government intervention and maybe but on any other, interventions you think for these to improve, when any more key areas that you think that needs to be highlighted. Are you there, Doc?
Yes, it's a.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So did you get my question, or should I pick another question?
Honor.
Okay. It's fine. I think let's not belabor that particular question, but let me take this, and probably my final question before I take Kachi, who is raising his hand. If you look at the sectors, for instance, what sector do you see as the most promising? Because again, bearing in mind a lot of people know diaspora again now, maybe to give them idea to see where they can come in. What sector do you see as the most promising for industrialization in the Southeast? And what steps are necessary to develop these sectors? These sectors consider no how would the most promising, and to get these things off the ground. If we rail, I don't know. I'm an nayabu and if we rail all the on sound good nantiman or
I think transportation will a major factor in linking people. In Edika universities known as the Southeast, I guess University of Nigeria and Nsukka, and probably Federal University of Technology Owerri. These two universities, if there is a lot of transportation link between different towns and Nsukka and Owerri, you will find that a lot of things can happen. I'm just, moving from transport to education. A situation where people crowd into a town because they want to take maybe 4-hour lectures in a week. But if there was transportation, somebody can move from Umuahia to Nsukka, attend, maybe a postgraduate student, attend lectures in 2 days and go back. So that, he can do other things. And unless we begin to link people with efficient transportation, many things cannot be done. I think it is very, 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 very necessary. Ports is also part of transportation. All the problems in Dubai when in Lagos, One, Port Harcourt, but because if there was an investment in barges, you can transload from a big ocean-going ship into barges and bring the goods to Onitsha. And you forget all the problems of police molestation between Onitsha and Lagos. If you travel across the country, if you move from Obolafo towards the north, you wonder whether the same policemen who are between Onitsha and Lagos are the same policemen that are serving. The policemen will stand and watch vehicles pass. But in the other one, any side in the Igbo na-agafe, a block where so we need efficiency in transportation. It can have multiplier effect. Again, education, because part of what we are discussing are things we learned in primary school. When I have done a class, I feel classroom. You will look up Kulumili, more dust by any. Manakita, you have university, so I need the transportation, with deficiency, rail, because rail is actually the mass transit. Even in Nigeria, motorboat Madishi, I see no mass transit bus. Mass transit of Madishi, more 18-seater, I see no mass transit. We need rail. If we have improved routes, we can bring in bigger buses. But from the economics of fuel, we shouldn't be going into motor vehicles now, because even the CNG government in Ezeoke, there's a recent report from Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is an oil producing country, and they had a massive discovery of natural gas, but they cannot longer feed their motor vehicles with CNG because of the technology required, and the companies that are producing it are already leaving their country. So, so the Diaspora can start in transport, looking at river transportation into Onitsha for bulk goods. and even for exports. And then within monorails, within the cities, to make sure that, there's efficiency and household expenditure on transportation goes down.
Okay, thank you very much. I think with other questions, let me first yield, to Ndi Nokwan Nimeba. Kachi, please, if you may ask your question now. You've been asked to unmute. Kachi, please, you make it unmute, can I become?
Okay. So can I now?
Yes, Kachi Gani Rubiko.
Okay. Ndewo. Ekeneka m gị Maazi Abraham ndewo.
Okwa Stan UKEJE ka gịnị not Abraham. Abraham was last week.
Sorry.
Mba isi Abraham wee sị gị no.
Maazi Stan. Sorry, Maazi Stan. Maybe because I wanted to judge Abraham. Something about Abraham last week too. So maybe I jumped into my mind. Okay. So I be there from Maazi Stan because ekenekwa ngozo. Nke mbụ, just like I wanted to say, I no go Maazi Abraham last week. I no go Kwange today. What is worrying me? My complaining, if I'm not complaining. Ndị isi anyị ndị mgbe gboo appear to have been more creative than complaining. It appears somehow we have drifted more into complaining than being creative. And I think it is something the Igbo people have to fight, because I know from the way the brain works, these two are two different ends of the pole. So the more you dwell on one, the less you are able to do on the other. And I think that being creative is what made the then Eastern Nigeria the fastest growing economy. That's one of the things that happened. And if you look at people who have done very well in Igbo land, they didn't do it with the support of the center. When Mbakwe did what he did in Imo State, it was in no position that he did. So what I'm saying is that we shouldn't simply complain about opposition. It's there, it's real, it's a problem, but we must use creativity to fight it. In other words, express our complaints more in the creative way. Now that our elders, I'm hearing you very well, you have identified missing key. That ingredient, that Senec you have identified, a very vital missing key. Because without integration and making ourselves a nation, we find we're just, see, let me give you an example of the development. Look at, I just saw Ebony was to spend about 13 billion on the airport that has built for about 36 billion. 30 minutes, 25 minutes away is another airport in Enugu.
Okay, I think Doc Okwena.
Yes, on the benefit of integration.
Yeah,
and
can you go ahead and answer the Imogon Kojuaj Makana from the internet and app of Okunono?
Yes, the
okay, I think hold on. I think he's back.
Thank you. Okay, let me try and make it
back. Please, can you sum it up now?
Yes. So what I'm saying now is, rather than all this uncoordinated developments left, right, and center, they're not helping us. Senate can get all that together. But what I'm saying now, how will Abraham, all the people that even people like Anyoko, how can you together talk to our political leadership in terms of our state administrators to now say, can we legislate this Senate into being? I'm talking about legislation by the state house, each of the state house of assembly, so that it can transcend the governor. I mean, because I want people to be signing signer. But if we enshrine it as legislation in each of the state houses, at least that will be more enduring. And the Senate that you have talked about, that I have got to read, has an enduring kind of charter, which means that once we can legislate it into being, it can begin to run, so that we can have more to do and less to complain. So how can the leadership focus on that? Because whenever Igbos meet, I listen. Each time we are talking different things. But I think that when we meet at these levels of your kind of person, and the program is single, one program, let us Senec or whatever solves that problem of Senec. And this is what it is. Let us now say, this is the Igbo problem for today. I think that even the governors will be forced to make a lesson.
Thank
the
you
states
very much, Dr.
speakers of assembly will do something about it. So how do we make that the single agenda from now till we can achieve something like that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Dr. Stan.
Okay. My angle to answering that question, because planning is only in Nigeria that people don't know that planning cost. There's a cost to planning. When I'm being a Kwoku Diaspora, assuming Nandi World Igbo Congress, when we meet Anambra State's governor or government, because Njenje, and I see my comparison about 5 Southeast states. Anambra, the coordinator Anambra, they said that Anambra is working regardless of government because of the capacity of people there, both financial and human resource. Therefore, Anambra, Enugu State Governor is giving the impression that he's a business-like, he's a avant-garde. Abia State's governor is also giving that impression. The three of them, and there's something around this Senate there that says this policy is what we think we should be following. These 3 states will follow the same policy. Let me give you an example. The United States is a highly developed country, but part of what develops the US is public sector procurement. Okeke Nachi, Asino Okeleku, but the contractor in charge of road. Ochicha Puta, Okafobata, Asino Okeleku Abrozi, no Pussy, was the new contractor. Mana, anywhere a coordinated system around the region, the 5 states can have an interest in a big construction company, a civil engineering company. Maybe they will all be holding 10% shares. All the 5 of them, okay, 5%, so that the 5 of them will have 25% shares and allow the private sector to own shares. But there will be a commitment that that company will be giving road construction over the next 50 years to enable it to be strong. A leasing company can also be registered to be leasing equipment to the construction company. The private sector should come in, but we can begin step by step. If Anambra State can adopt the method, Abia, Enugu, you will see that the remaining states will easily fall in line. So that is how I think it can be done, because getting a general agreement is difficult because of the loyalty of some political players to forces outside. And regional reform. Most people know na Southeast, but we should be championing it because near the one ade elu anya aka. Onye ba anyị luo di a enwe nke akọnyere n'aka ọsọ anyị chelu na ọ ka na-agbalata anyị ga-echigide luo mgbe one, like I said before. Mana anyị nwee a regional arrangement, first starting by ourselves, setting common standards of doing things, and helping one another, so that there will be a dynamic that will drive the region. It will be something that is good, so that the political actors will now be following the people instead of the people waiting for them, because they are not they don't recognize the value of their position in many instances.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, Chris, Kedu Ajuje.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. UKEJE, thank you very much for your insights. My question, Gabo, kedu mgbe a ga-etinye all these theories into practical? Anugo so many times, and with this Ala Igbo Development Fund, and so many of them, I think, one mood there. It's very unfortunate. I'm not even our Igbo governors, for the massive multi-billion capital Igbo in diaspora. Well, why can't we tap into that fund? So many times, if I know plan this, plan that, but when do we put it into practical? That is my question. Anyway, I get you well pressure the Igbo governors. Amala, Nafaga, Tetanola, Naola anywhere. Then this my second question for Dr. UKEJE. We figure one about the discussion I never now so far about one Igbo state. It creates one more Igbo state. In terms of the ability, can they be chill? That state gets well put up, because some are saying, oh, when they go back all states, when they go back other states. Then lately, if I don't wasn't able and Yoma, can they feature that where this state gets well put up, so that now get favor Igbo nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Doc, just a couple of minutes. You know, if you might attend to that question, then we'll call it a day.
Okay. From the discussions we have been having, my view is that the states we have now are not even efficient. Actually, if I open politics in Nigeria, the deliberative, because any republic should have a deliberative government, like you see in the US, you know, and they deliberate about things. We should be talking about the efficiency of government, not the multiplication of government. So I have, and some of the sponsorships are being instigated by people outside the Southeast. Manabo and Igbo believe now Nigeria is working for them. Now actually one more state, or they have here without creating for other people. Mano Abako Abaya is not just about the people elected; it's about everybody. Getting things done differently. I have mentioned that it is private sector driven. The governors, if they are persuaded, can have a joint meeting, like anyway, National Council on different things, National Council on Works, National Council on Education, National Council on Commerce. We can have a regional council where instead of demolition from time to time, we discuss why is it that people encroach on roads? Why do people build without plan? Who are those people in the land office that allow people to build only to look the other way when it's being demolished? And we have a common policy that is known to everybody, even taught in schools. When look left, look right, look left again before you cross. So akọwa ordinary curriculum a na-akụziri ụlọ akwụkwọ so that ị na-alụ something n'enu gọta onye agbata obi gị bịa sị gị na ihe anyị na-eme na ị na-adakwa iwu mana all the obvious that the states in the southeast ought to be talking to themselves, not just as a meeting of governors, but their subordinate officials, their directors of planning should be meeting and saying, this is how we should be getting things done in a uniform manner, and then let the people debate it. A Senate doesn't have to be elected. I think Elders Council na Anambra. Those people were not elected, but they were giving very valid advice. So we could have it on a regional level so that people can hear from those who have succeeded and show us the way to a better society.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stan UKEJE. You know, in the last hour plus, we've been having this conversation. I think many of us keep asking, you know, for action. My personal opinion, Bukwana, even conversation on its own is an action, because great ideas cannot evolve without people of like minds really putting their heads together. It has been an interesting conversation. We will keep driving, we will keep pushing until I am maluma ndi chile, ndi nti ike, aye bidonova, makana, asino ometi isi, ometi imi, ometu anya, makwa na ihe niile dị n'isi na ometubago fancha, because we cannot all keep quiet. Asino okenye ara na ọkwanụ n'ụlọ, ewu. It has been an enlightening one-on-one conversation with Dr. Stan UKEJE. Like I said at the beginning, he holds a PhD in economics, and he is a renowned expert in development economics and policy analysis. Again, onye bụ nwanne anyị nwoke nke ndị Igbo na-asị na o nwere extensive background that includes his role. Maka Ministry of National Planning, otu si wee kọwakwala anyị ka ya bụ ọrụ si aga, nke wutezili m bụ na o mesizi wee gwa anyị na enwerozi National Development Plan otu o si dịbụ na mbụ, and anwa bụ na anyị ga-esi wee ghọta ka mmiri si wee baa n'opi ụgbọgụrụ. Dr. UKEJE, as you have seen, brings a wealth of knowledge to this discussion. He is currently the managing consultant at Stan Consult Nigeria and an active member of the Technical Committee on the Southeast Nigeria Economic Commission, which many of us here agrees ought to be and should be the policy powerhouse and the clearinghouse for the Southeast. But again, the question is, Guinea Melo na ya bụ ife ara aga, ọ bụ na agụba eji akpụ isi adịrọ nkụ ka ọ bụ na onye na-akpụ ya amara akpụ. On that note, I say thank you very much. We can stay back and have further unrecorded and not public conversation. It's been a wonderful time once more. Dr. UKEJE, biko mmasizi gị for your last word, ka ikene ụmụnna anyị ka inyezi anyị your final note here. Thank you very much once more.
Thank you very much, Tochukwu. You are already doing what everybody wants done by bringing these matters to the public. The more you disseminate the information, the more people will buy in, because as now knowledge is didactic. Knowledge is didactic. Oh, ihe ama ka a na-akụzi n'ụlọ akwụkwọ. Ada ejere ụlọ akwụkwọ ka a mụta ihe a na-amarụ. No, ihe ama bụ ka a na-asị jee ebe a ka ịmụta ihe ndị a kpokọrọta. So you are on the right track. As often as you make available knowledge to the public, the better that you will get things done. Because ọ dịkwa ka agwọ nọzi n'akịrịka nwantịtị oge kịta a ga-ama na ịgbagazi Abuja ma Lagos abara uru ka anyị nọ n'ụlọ chịkọrọta nke anyị nwere na ka ofere ọla wee zuo nne.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. So, now. On that note, we'll say all of you watching us on X, on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook, we'll say thank you very much for being part of this. Join us same time next week again for another interesting guest. And if you haven't subscribed to this platform, by all means do. Follow us. Share this conversation with others. For us, as he said, dịka ndị na-agụ akwụkwọ nsọ si kwu na iron sharpeneth iron, so that we would have this knowledge be disseminated. Thank you.